Hello, students. So today my plan was to discuss the college credit option for our course. If you were not aware, you do have the option to try and attempt to earn college credit through the University of Washington without really doing anything additional other than registering and paying to the University of Washington. So there's no difference in the class if you choose to take it versus if you don't choose to take it. Your tests, assignments, everything's the same. You'd get a separate grade for high school as you would for college. And I'll get into some of those details in a little bit. But this is kind of what I wanted to do today. But since I can't be there, I figured that this would be the way we go about that. So if you were looking for some information on this process on your own, if you go to the modules on Canvas, which you probably already made it to because you're watching this video, but under course resources, if we take a look at that, there is a link here, the UWHS presentation for teacher use. So I'm going to take us through that presentation, but just so you know, this presentation is there for you to take a look at any time. So how the program works is essentially, so instead of doing Running Start, you are able to get college credit through our partnership with the University of Washington. We agree to teach their material in a way that they want it taught, test the material in a way that they feel is suitable and matches what they're doing at the university. And as long as we're meeting those things, then they will offer our students the opportunity to earn credit in the class. Every student gets high school credit as long as they pass, no matter what. Your high school credit and your high school grade have nothing to do with this. I guess the program highlights, it's the oldest college in the high school program. I know Central Washington and a few other colleges have one as well. The number of high schools that have offered it is growing, and that includes out of state. There's other classes that are offered. I believe Japanese and astronomy are offered here. Those are some other classes that do the same thing. The thing you really need to understand about this is that these classes are treated as if you took them at the University of Washington, and you get an official University of Washington transcript with the letter, with the grade that you earn. Sorry, I was saying letter grade, but University of Washington does GPA, not letter grade. So they do things like a grade of a 2.5 or a 2.7. They don't assign B- or A- designations. So some of the benefits of registering for credit is, you're getting it, really it's just low cost. That's the main benefit. The main benefit, it's a low cost option to get college credit versus if you wanted to get it on your own through college. So that's kind of the biggest thing. Plus you don't have to leave the high school and go to do Running Start. You can stay in the high school and do those things. Student eligibility. So 10th, 11th, or 12th grade students, B+ in the subject area or permission of teacher. I really almost feel like, based on what I know and I've seen in the last few years, B+ is really on the low end. I think in order to approach this and think about taking the college credit, it really, I feel, needs to be someone who's strong and someone who's fairly confident that with hard work that they can get an A or an A- in this class, mainly because of the way it's graded, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Registration, this is something that I don't handle at all. You register straight through the University of Washington, but it's a total of $370, so that's not nothing. But in terms of college credit options, getting 5 credits, that's fairly inexpensive. So that's kind of the main benefit of it, is it's an inexpensive version of college credit. So after registering, you'll see those things. You can withdraw from the class after registering for it, but you do not get a refund. So, it is possible to get halfway through the class and say, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to go for the high school grade, and that's it. You just won't get the money back from registering. Let's see here. So yeah, things to know. Registering establish a permanent UW record. You get a permanent UW transcript that when you're applying to colleges, that transcript has to go with your applications. And so that's a really big deal. And that's the biggest thing you need to understand. So if you take this and you do this option and you don't like your final result, the grade wise, that's permanently there for you. And we can't just get rid of it. Your high school grade and your college grade might be different. They probably will. Understand that your college grade, 40% of your grade is the final exam. So it's, and I believe, I want to say it's about 25% of your grade is tests. So it's roughly the same percentage in terms of tests and final as it is in here. But the problem is, so for that 40% on the final, that's been what's kind of been tough for some students, is that really a big chunk of your grade comes down to that last test at the end of the year, and it can change your grade by a little bit. It doesn't affect, one thing to know is it doesn't affect your ability to get into the University of Washington. You're not more likely or less likely to get into school based on it. Other things is you want to check with, if you're planning on going somewhere else, you need to check and see if they accept credit from University of Washington. So if you already know a handful of colleges that you're thinking of, you really want to check first, because some schools might not accept this credit. That being said, it's University of Washington. It's fairly well recognized. I think a lot of places are going to take the credits. It's just that there are some that don't, and so you really want to make sure you understand that that's a possibility. Here's some resources of where to get some extra information. There's a fact sheet. I actually put that on Canvas as well. So in terms of the fact sheet, the registration form you'll have to get from me. I'd like to be able to have conversations with everyone who's serious about registering and just make sure that we kind of understand exactly what's going on. And mainly because the other thing that I really want to talk about, so the final exam is 40% of your grade. But the other thing that occurs here is that final exam, your entire course grade is going to be curved based on that final. So I mean, your test grades, your homework grades, everything gets curved. And the way that they curve it is, if the students that I have, if the median grade of the final exam, if our median, and this only applies to those taking college credit, applying for college credit. Everybody else that's not applying for college credit, their grades aren't included in this. But everyone who I have who's applying for college credit, they look at the final exam scores. They find the median final exam scores of those students. So let's say it's just 7 students. They take the median grade of those 7 students and they compare it to the median grade at the University of Washington final in the spring. And based on that, they will curve the rest of our grades. So if those 7 people, if their median test grade is higher than at the University of Washington, then everyone's grade, your homework grade, your test grade, everything gets a bump up. The grade gets curved up. However, if the median grade is lower, that means that everyone's grade gets curved down a little bit, and that includes everything. Test, homework, everything gets curved down. So the kicker there then is that whoever signs up for this class has to understand that when you're taking that final exam and you're going through this class, you're not only working towards your own grade, but you're working towards the grade of your peers. Meaning your final exam score is part of that contribution that's being used to curve everybody else. So if I take the class for credit and I don't really prepare very well, and I don't do a very good job on the final exam, if my score winds up being that median grade, that means everyone else's scores are going to be affected by my performance. The same thing happens if I excel on the final, though, and if everyone's medians are great, then everyone is affected by that performance. So it's a really tough situation because you're not being judged on your own merits like you would in an AP class or in a, if you were taking classes at Shoreline Community College. So you really, really, really need to understand that part of this situation, that what you do not only affects you, but it affects everyone else taking this for credit. And that's just the way that they do this for math. They don't do it in other subjects, but they do it in math to make sure that they kind of get the feel that if we're doing really well, then obviously everything we're doing, including tests and homework, is above, the median. But they feel like if we don't do well in the final, then what we're doing on tests and homework isn't up to par. So it's just the way that they've decided to do that. Lastly, I think it's important to talk about who should take this and who shouldn't. Like, what are the benefits of it? Because one of the things that we need to understand is if you're a sophomore or a freshman or a junior and you're planning on taking calculus and planning on taking the AP exam, that AP exam, if you get an acceptable score, will basically kind of not necessarily wash out this college credit, but make it so that it's not something that you really needed in the end. So for some of the students, this would really just be an insurance plan or a backup for that AP exam. So if you're a junior and you're going into calc next year and you're just worried that maybe you won't get the score that you need on your AP exam because some schools require a 4 or a 5, then you could do this just as a backup plan to make sure that you have this credit. And that's what it would essentially serve. If you're a senior, it's a little bit more important because you will go into college next year and have to take a math placement exam. And sometimes that math placement exam, depending on how you do, they could place you back into pre-calculus. They could even decide that they want to place you back into a college algebra section. So where this then, I guess, becomes beneficial for some students is if you're not confident or don't know that you're going to have AP credits from calculus going in to college, these credits would essentially keep you from having to retake pre-calculus in college and or may even prevent you from having to take a math placement test. They may just be able to place you right into calculus based on these credits. So there are some benefits to it, but you have to make sure that those benefits are kind of outweighing the responsibility and the amount that you have to put into it, knowing that 40% of your grade is going to hinge on that final exam, and that when you're done with it, there's a permanent UW transcript with that grade that's on there that you kind of can't get rid of. So if you have questions about it and you just kind of want to chat with me, that's fine. We'll chat about it. The registration deadline is the 26th of October. So we have a while to make that decision. That being said, I would probably recommend that you try to make your final decision with your family in the next week and a half, and then come to me, and really only come to me for that registration form if it's something that you're seriously considering doing. So thank you. And like I said, if you have questions, we can do individual questions or something another time, but it's an option for this class. It's part of what we have. And so I wanted to make sure to address that at some point.